Hello, everyone. How's it going? Azren, the language nerd here. Hope you're having a fantastic Monday afternoon, or of course, whatever day and time it is for you right now as you're watching this video here. Welcome to episode number 57, if I'm not mistaken, of Azren's Journal. For those of you who are new to the segment on my channel, it is pretty straightforward. This is the segment on my channel where I talk about my personal language learning journey, and of course, give you guys a whole bunch of language learning tips. So it is Monday, as I said, as I'm recording this here and making this video, and it is a long weekend in my province in this particular weekend. So I'm not sure if all of Canada has a long weekend during this particular weekend here. I think not. I could be wrong, but at any rate, I am very happy, and people are generally feeling quite good that it is a long weekend. For myself, considering that I'm self-employed, I work for myself, I do tend to travel for 4+ weeks a year for the most part. Because of that, I don't always take my long weekends off. When there's a long weekend, I tend to work. It tends to be a normal work day, usually, just because I'm taking more vacation time than most Canadians take anyway. So I kind of have to work through those long weekends and such. Now, I want to talk about the main topic of this video, which is your language strengths. I think this is important to identify. Every single one of us is going to be better at certain aspects of language learning than others. So myself, for example, I tend to be really good at pronunciation. Pronunciation comes reasonably naturally to me, and it's just one of those things. And because of that, I lean heavily into pronunciation. I will learn the pronunciation. I focus on it. I try to sound as natural as I possibly can. I try to sound as close to a native speaker as I possibly can. And I focus on that heavily because ultimately when we are going through the process of learning another language, we have to, it's important to realize that we're all of us are going to have a different pathway, and some of us are going to be better at certain things and worse at others. So I'm thinking of a couple of people right now in particular who are actually grammatically and I guess you could say grammatically very strong, and vocabulary base very strong. They have a great vocabulary, great grammar, but pronunciation does not come natural to these people that I'm thinking of right now. And this is pretty common, obviously. And so you've got to figure out what your biggest strengths are. And I actually think it makes sense to double down on those strengths and try to round out whatever your weaknesses are, work on them, make sure it makes sense, make sure that you're adequate, but you don't necessarily need to be worried or stressed out that you're not good at blah, blah, blah element of the language. So I'll give you an example from my life. I'm learning Mandarin, as you guys know. And in Mandarin, I, to this day, 5 years later, tend to struggle with writing characters. I have slowly but surely improved over the years, very slowly, like incredibly slowly, painfully slowly. But printing is something I'm not good at. Like even in my regular life from my childhood, I have found printing to be boring, hard. I've never liked it. As a child, I didn't like it. I've never liked it. And so when it comes to printing characters, it's something I don't enjoy, and it's something I'm so bad at to start with. It naturally is not something that comes, it's not really in my DNA, let's call it, that I'm going to make sure I learn it, but I know it's going to take me way longer. I'm going to have to practice it way more. It's going to be painful at times. I'm not going to want to do it, but I'm giving myself 10 years to figure that out. Versus pronunciation, because I'm really good at it, I doubled down on that early on and got really good at it way faster than most people ever do. And what tends to happen with languages, and interestingly, in many aspects of life, when you have something that you're naturally good at and you work on it and you become really good at that one thing in a reasonably short period of time, people notice that, and the weaknesses kind of fall by the wayside for the most part. So in Mandarin, I often just get praised on, wow, you sound really natural. People say that all the time. And it's only later, it's only the minority of the time where people go, oh, your writing is really bad. In fact, even when they notice the poor printing, they often say, oh, your printing needs work, but man, you know what? That's hard. You're so good at talking, or you're so good at pronunciation, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you sound so good. I mean, whatever. Printing, I guess your pros have weighed out a lot of the cons, if that makes sense. So I think it's a very practical strategy that I recommend you pursue. I recommend you do that. Figure out what naturally comes best to you in another language. Focus on those, structure a lot of your time around it, and just try and round off some of the things that are really difficult and really not the easiest for you. Going into some more very practical things around language learning, I want to give you I think this will help a lot of you. I want to give you a very practical, very useful piece of advice in terms of grammar. This will work for a variety of languages, maybe even all languages. I'm just going to pull something up on my computer as I do this. So I've got it in front of me. Here we go. So when you're learning another language, right, there's a lot of grammar. There's a lot of vocabulary. There's a lot of information that you have to internalize and get good at. I think this is common sense. Cole, by the way, I see your question. Never really interested in translation or interpreting. Not something that's really caught my interest to pursue. So just wanted to answer your question. Now, there's a lot of information to learn another language. One of the biggest blocks that is difficult for people tends to be grammar. Grammar tends to be really difficult for people. And there's so much to it. There's often things that don't make sense, that don't translate very well to your target language, to your mother tongue. Like, it can get really complex. And every language has its own nuances in terms of what grammar exists, what doesn't exist, how do things work out. But there are, I believe, some fundamentals. There are certain types of things you must be able to communicate in order to have a base level of conversation. And I'm going to list out what some of these grammatical points are. Please keep in mind that depending on what language or languages you are learning, there's going to be different rules to be able to execute on these things, but the concepts most likely are going to exist in some way, shape, or form in the language that you are currently trying to learn. Okay? So you must be able to communicate in the present tense. You must be able to describe what is happening now in this moment. In English, that breaks down to simple present. I eat a cake. It breaks down into present continuous. I am eating a cake, right? Those are two very basic things. And perhaps this isn't of utmost importance. This is not the most important, but maybe it's semi-important. Present perfect. Things like I have eaten a cake. I would say not the most important, but in the present of what's happening right now, I eat a cake and I am eating, right? Those two, being able to express those types of things, what's happening currently, is incredibly important. In every language, there'll be different ways to do so, different rules, different grammar points, but that's important. You have to be able to do that. You must also be able to talk about stuff that happens in the past. So if you look at English, right, we have things like I ate, this is a very simple past. We have I was eating, right, more of a past continuous. And those two past, there's other past as well, but those two must be things that you are able to express. We also have, and it's another form of past, it's different in different languages, but we also have the concept of used to. This is getting a little more advanced, but still something it's a core building block. You must be able to talk about stuff that you used to do, but you don't do anymore. Again, different languages will have different ways to express this, and you'll have to figure out what that is in your language, but I believe that to be reasonably important. Less important than just simple past or past continuous or just things like that in English, for example. Less important than that, but still reasonably important. And then lastly, I would say the future. You have to be able to talk about what's going to happen in the future. I will do this. I'm going to do this. Again, different languages will break that down differently, and there's going to be different ways to do so, but being able to do that is crucial. So I think those are three core pillars to just grammar that you must have mastered or have a good handle on if you want to have any kind of level of fluency in another language. So again, describing what's happening now, what's going to happen in the upcoming future, and what happened in the past. And as I said, I'm going to stress this because I don't want the comments below. I want to stress this. Will make sense, right? Like French, you know, has passé composé and there's imparfait. There's basically two core, you know, basic past tenses. There's others too, but those are kind of the two core ones that you definitely would need to know. In English, you know, we have past simple and then past continuous. Those kind of tend to be the two core ones. And then, you know, secondarily would be the used to, communicating things you used to do per se, right? But Mandarin, there is no past simple and past, like it is, but it's not the same. It's structured differently. So, but at any rate, those are concepts you have to have a decent handle on in your target language or target languages. I got to take off here. It's 3:28 p.m. I could talk literally forever. So this video could go on for hours and hours and hours and hours, but I'm a little tight on time. It's already been 11 minutes regardless. So it's a good time to wrap it up. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your attention. And of course, we will talk very soon. Bye-bye. See you.